Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another live hangout here at Voice Essentials. Let's just get this out of the way straight away. You can hear my voice is not great today. And I'm going to talk you through. I found myself in a situation where I had to sing yesterday, and and I had to sing. I didn't have to sing sick, and that's an important point. But I'll talk you through the scenario and how I handled it. I thought some of you might find it interesting to kind of walk through my mental process in what brought me about to singing on a less than optimal voice, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Of course, the main focus of our activity today is going to be Q&A. It is going to be based on how my voice holds up. And so if you want a question answered, the sooner you get your questions up into the chat, the better, because that means that you'll be higher up the line and be able to see how I last in answering. I don't know how many questions I'm going to get through today. I'm in despite my voice, I'm in perfect health. I feel fine. But my voice, as you can hear, is not great. Some administrational things before we get to Q&A. First of all, happy Father's Day to all of those. I believe it's Father's Day in the US. Is it Father's Day anywhere else? It's not Father's Day here in Australia. Our Father's Day is in September, but I do believe it's Father's Day definitely in the US. Is it Father's Day in Kelly? I can see you in the chat. Is it Father's Day currently in Canada? I'd be interested to know. Yeah. So and leave. We were all leaving what our temperature is currently in the chat. Let us know where you're from, and let us know what the temperature is. Dean, who I believe is in Honolulu from memory, or Hawaii, Dean says it's about 81 Fahrenheit, which is about 27 degrees. That's beautiful weather, Dean. I'm currently in Brisbane, Australia, and it's 18. It might have gone up to 19, but it's around about 19 degrees. I do not know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's for Brisbane. I'm a cold weather person. I love the colder weather. On Friday, it's finally here. We're going south. We're driving south for a couple of days down to the it's funny to call it the Alpine region. Our Alpine region in Australia doesn't have snow all year round. It really only has snow for about 3 or 4 months of the year. It's getting shorter with climate change, but nonetheless, we're going skiing next week. I'm very excited. I am so excited. If you've been watching this show long enough, you know I am a passionate skier. So we're doing that, and the temperatures down there have been in the negatives overnight, and the very zeros, ones, and twos during the day, and I'm looking forward to it. Woohoo! So that'll be good. But it has been getting cooler, even up here in Brisbane, Australia, which is we're a good 1,200, 1,400 kilometers north of those ski regions, and in the subtropics, and so it's been quite nice. Bradley's in Florida, 78 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm guessing that's around about 24, 25 degrees Celsius. If I'm just thinking about the fact that 81 Fahrenheit is 27, so it's probably around there. Kelly's saying yes, it is Father's Day in Canada. So happy Father's Day. Is it also Father's Day in places like? Is it Father's Day anywhere else? I don't know. On the note of the fact that I won't be here, I will be going on holidays on Friday. This is our last live hangout for 3 weeks. So there's not one next week or the week after. Our next live hangout is Monday, the 8th of July. It's going to be a Q&A, and then we'll get back into having our mini topics and our special guests. Well, I've got special guests already lined up, very exciting. Gee, we have some good special guests on this show. Like we just, and last week was no exception to that. We had Heidi Moss Erickson on, and she was talking about the virtues of play within the vocal studio and our own practice space, and so important. And it was so good to discuss with her. So we'll be having special guests when I get back. And I just, before we get into our Q&As today, you can see I've put a little bit of a poll up, and I'm taking a little bit of a sounding, if you will, of what you would think. I've been thinking, well, what else can we do within the live show space? What, and I don't want to, this is not going to come. I'm not going to stop doing Q&As. I'm not going to stop doing special guests or the mini topics. But I wondered, because I do voice analysis and reaction videos, as you know, and I did there was a Dimash one went live last week. Oh, the dear ones. I'm not the dear ones' favorite by virtue of my review of Dimash. I think he's fabulous, but the dear ones have got in their head that that I'm too harsh towards their beloved Dimash. And the funny thing about that was that last week's reaction, I really didn't think I was that critical, but anyway, they're very protective, and that's a good thing. I think that's wonderful that they're that passionate and dedicated to him. Anyway, so we do these analysis videos, and I wondered whether, and this is going to be rather contained, I don't know why, but the YouTube algorithm doesn't, plaster the live shows, all over the internet. There's every week we have anywhere, your average Q&A. We have anywhere from 400 to 600 views of the live show. Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little bit more, which is, I guess it's still pretty good, isn't it? But the point being is that I wondered whether in one sense, the privacy of our community, whether you would be open to me reviewing in a similar manner to what I do when I'm doing the vocal analysis videos, though it wouldn't have all the fancy text and stuff. It would just be me, and we would watch the performance together as a part of the live show. And I'm hoping that could work. And now I'm thinking about, I wonder if the video will run okay. I'm hoping that would work. I might have to do a trial to see if that works okay. Anyway, the idea would be to play, someone's performance recording, and do a relatively 10 to 15 minute review. And so I'm running this little poll at the moment, and there's 12 votes up so far. Now, none of this would happen without the permission of the person who's done the performance. So just to be clear, I'm not going to suddenly you're going to tune into the live show and there you are with me reviewing your video unbeknownst to yourself. No, that's not how I roll. It would be, certainly with your permission and your knowledge, if that's what you wanted to do. I'm thinking that, the place for me to identify those performances are going to likely be, first and foremost, I was thinking that the place that I would find those performances would be via the Facebook community group. And I would give preference to people who are enrolled in the enrolled in the Voice Essentials online courses. Almost in one sense as a value add to people who do participate in the online courses, but also as an easy place for me to identify those people who regularly put up their live performances for us to watch and review. And so that's my thoughts. That's my thinking. I'm not saying I'm going to do it, and in fact, as I'm talking it, I'm now wondering, is it even possible for me to do it in a as far as the audio and the video playing? I think it would be, but I'll have to check. I will have to double check that. So yeah, some ideas, some thoughts. That's where I'm thinking that we could maybe, explore new ideas for the new semester. Stay tuned. The only way, stay tuned. Subscribe. Hit the white bell icon. You know everything else to do. And we might. I'm literally. This was a thought I had this morning, and so. My brain hasn't yet got to the reasons why I shouldn't do it. I'm not. I can't. None have presented themselves, but anyway. So no promises, but there's my thoughts. So here we go. Well, I'm looking for questions in the chat. I'm not seeing any questions. This could be a rather short Q&A with no questions, which, in all honesty, my voice would probably favor a shorter session today. I'm just looking at some of our conversations here. I like Paul Venus has just written, I'm actually building a homemade vocal booth because it's the only way to practice and strengthen my voice. I would sing hours a day, but now it's really impossible. Voice is loud, Yeah, it's interesting that a homemade vocal booth, you can actually buy prefab vocal booths. The one thing and they're generally made, Paul, for recording, for actually doing vocal recordings. And for example, all of the Voice Essentials tracks were recorded in one of these prefab vocal booths with my friend Daniel Sporosky, and we recorded all of the vocal takes in that, which is fine and ideal actually for doing what we did. However, for vocal practice, I think you want to be a little careful to make sure that the room is not dead when you're designing yours, Paul. Just be careful for vocal practice and the development of your voice. Make sure you don't treat the room you're in, the surfaces, too heavily to dampen the acoustic, the resonance, because that's going to increase your vocal load. It's going to cause you to work harder. And in vocal practice, what are we learning to do? We're trying to learn to work less. And so be careful of that in your design of that vocal booth. Make sure that any sound treatment that you do to it, in your instance, is on the outside and not necessarily the inside. And so you get good acoustic value of the closed space, but no audible bleed out of the space. Just a thought, something, Paul, you've probably already thought of, but just be mindful of that. It is a challenge, isn't it, for singers, and I find it with my private students. And on that point, I probably should. I very rarely take the opportunity to remind you. As you know, I've got online courses, but I am teaching 5 days a week, right? This is all I do. I don't do anything else. That's all I do is teach voice. Anyway, so if you're interested in voice lessons, whether you're overseas or you come here privately, you can check out my private teaching studio site and check out all the details for that. But it's not an uncommon challenge faced by student singers to find themselves in a space that is conducive to vocal practice, whether it's because they've got family members that are constantly present, whether they're in an apartment building with paper-thin walls, they don't want to disturb neighbours. These are some of the challenges that we face, and there are a number of ways that you can go about working towards reducing the difficulties, mitigating the challenges that arise. I often that you can't eliminate them. One option is to find yourself locally in your local area, find a rehearsal space, and you can often pay a very small fee for rehearsal rooms. Some singing teaching studios that have multiple teaching spaces even hire out those teaching spaces for vocal practice at times. That's another option as well. So something for you to think about is that when you come to vocal practice, is finding that dedicated regular spot that is sustainable. And that's why sometimes the payment for a practice space is not sustainable. And so the next thing is to then have conversations with the people around you that you feel you're potentially going to be disturbing or may hear you, and just open the conversation. Let them know you're having singing lessons and that you're developing your voice, and that they might hear some funny sounds. You can ask them, is there any time that you would prefer that I didn't practice? So that I don't disturb you. If maybe you live next to a shift worker and you don't want to disturb their sleep. These things, these are all considerations that we can take into account. Victoria Winner has just written a question in here. I bought a Casio. Again, before I read the question, they still haven't fixed the software issue where I can display the question on screen. I've put in more support tickets, so I have to just read it for you, and we'll go from there. I bought a Casio electronic piano with a mini MIDI included, secondhand with no instructions. Do you know if you can record your voice with that? I doubt it. I doubt it, Victoria. Recording your voice, it's unlikely. This keyboard here, it's actually a Casio. It's very non-professional, level. At times I've even thought of actually removing the label Casio off it, so that when my pro students come in, they don't think I'm, below par as far as professionalism goes. But I do know that this is not something you could record your voice onto. That being said, this would have to be 15 years old, I think. It's old. It's very old. It's so old. I've got I've had some broken keys, and I know, and I want to keep it going. I'm very much into sustainability as far as, fixing things where they can be fixed. And I found someone on Facebook Marketplace who was selling exactly the same keyboard, and I bought it for, I don't know, $60 or something. And the only reason I bought it was so I could harvest the keys off it. So I pulled it apart and removed the keys from it so I could keep this old girl going. Because that's all I need it for, is for teaching. I'm not performing with it or anything. I couldn't perform with it. I don't play keyboard. I play guitars. But Yeah, so as far as what I'm getting at is it's so old, I don't know what the new stuff can do. I haven't looked at keyboards recently. So Victoria, I very much doubt it though. I'm not aware of a keyboard that you can plug a microphone in and record your voice, though that sounds like a really good idea, and so maybe it already has been done. You'd have to look into that and find out. Um, uh, as far as finding instructions, you'd be surprised if you type in the the name of your keyboard, as in Casio, and then the exact model number. So, for example, my model number here. Oh, what is it? It is here somewhere. Oh, WK 3200. So you find the model number. It'll be written on the keyboard. Type that in, and then type manual next to that in your in Google or whatever you use as your browser, and you'll be surprised. I think you'll probably find the manual online. Most you'll find most manuals online now. So maybe go about it that way and find out if it can do that. You could try that. Lennon Richards has asked here, as far as voice health, would it be advisable to do exercises 3 times a day for 30 minutes or once a day for 90 minutes? Duration of each session may vary for each person. So yes to the last bit, duration of each session will vary person to person. Some people can sing longer and some people sing shorter, and it's a matter of you knowing what you can or can't do. And the other thing too is so firstly, and we've talked a bit to this value over the years, I don't advocate for beginner singers practicing every day. In fact, I don't advocate for any singer to practice every day. You do need vocal downtime. You need opportunity for your voice to have respite and recovery time. Vocal rest is one of the most undervalued aspects of being a singer, I think. There are so many issues that can be avoided just by implementing a good vocal rest strategy. So with beginner singers, I'm always encouraging practicing every second day for about 20 minutes. After a week, add 5 minutes, 25 minutes every second day. And you keep going and building week by week until you're practicing anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour. Now, again, that allows for the differences between everyone. So that's something. And then and because we've got Voice Essentials 1, Voice Essentials 2, Voice Essentials 3, when my students step into Voice Essentials 2, after about 10, 12 weeks, then you can maybe add a day. So instead of practicing, 7 times a fortnight, you could practice 8 or 9 times a fortnight. You're still building those recovery days into your practice regime. And I think that's really important for your overall health. I do know that there are, respected colleagues who advise doing practice 3 times a day for about 30 minutes. And that can be a good thing to do if that works for you, as opposed to doing one solid, 1 hour. There is a process here in which we have to manage the model in accordance with, well, what's your available time, and making sure it works for you, but always acknowledging that you are a biological instrument and you need to be attentive to what your voice is able to carry. What is it able to do? And so I hope that's some helpful thoughts. Hey, we're up to 14 votes for the question I've put here. Would you be prepared to have your recorded performance reviewed by Dr. Dan live on the show? For those of you who have come in late, that question is in reference to, I'm thinking, I've got the idea of showing a performance as a part of, like, reviewing, community members' performances, recorded performances, as a part of the live show. With their permission, we're not going to, surprise anyone. Oh, hang on a second, that's me on screen. No, it's going to be with, with someone's permission, and so I'm just taking a sounding of what you think of that, and so far, it's not the vast majority, but so far it's basically 2 to 1 of people who would be happy to have. I'll end the poll in a moment, so make sure, if you haven't voted yet, put your vote in, and I'll show you what the results are before the end of the show. We might even, actually, what we might even do is, we might even, towards the end of the show today, might even do a quick test. I'm thinking out aloud today. We might even do a live test and see if you can. I'll play one of my videos, one of my performance videos, and we'll see if it's possible for you to hear. If I play the video, whether it's possible for you to hear and see the video play and the visual works. I think that'll be one way to kind of test it out. What do you reckon? We'll do that in a moment, and that way we can do a live test, and it'll just be me, and we won't be offending anyone. Before we do, though, I want to go to the third question. What do you Nibi Shad Bookway? I've attempted your name on here before, and I get it wrong every time, I'm sure. What do you advise as help for singing a bit flat, range, C3 scale, normal for it? Typically, when there's 2 things that can be happening when we find ourselves singing flat. It's rarely, I find, amongst people who desire to sing and love to sing. It's rarely, though not always, but it's rarely a laryngeal issue where, they can't sing a pitch. It's more often what happens to the pitch afterwards, as it leaves and is tuned by the vocal tract. And so a flat pitch is often, it can be just simply through a lack of energy, and that is that the voice is just not up and on enough. That's one thing that it can be. But interestingly, it can also be through too much energy, as in through too much effort. And that is the voice is being driven too hard. Everything's locking down, and it kind of drags the pitch flat. And so they're the things, and these are the things that technique, will facilitate. It's not simply about you being able to hear can I hear the pitch. And because that's often what the feedback singers will get. Oh, you're a bit pitchy. Can't you hear the music? It's very rarely that the pitch is driven through, not identifying the right pitch. You can hear the right pitch, and often we can communicate to the larynx internally and get the vocal folds oscillating at the right pitch. But what happens, post that oscillation, post that frequency hit, can be then dragging the note off the pitch. I'm just seeing the comment. Neeby says, just call them Neeby. Okay, Neeby. I'll remember I'm going to do my best to remember to just call you Neeby. Will that work? I hope. Thank you for that permission. That will make it a lot easier. So Neeby, I hope that gives you some I hope that gives you some ideas with the pitch. Before we call it a day, because can you hear my voice? It's nearly done. what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull up a performance video. Now this is going to be interesting. How do I, and I will have to do this with headphones on, though today we won't do it with headphones. I hope you don't mind me doing this sort of live kind of take on things. Let me make sure this doesn't, I don't think that's going to play. So I'm going to come down to here. I'm going to come to here. I'm going to press pause on that. I'm going to do this. Oh, let me just go back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come across. Oh. So this is where let me do this. Okay. So you can see me on screen now, right? Now I'm going to need your feedback in the chat. And I want you to tell me, and I can see a fourth question that's come in, which we will get to. But just quickly tell me, can you see, I'm keen for the audio and the video to run relatively cleanly. So let me know. Linda, you can let me know in the doc, and then everyone else let me know in the chat as to whether this works okay.
Do you remember me? I sat upon your knee. I wrote to you with childhood fantasy.
Video's good, audio's good. Dean's happy.
Well, I'm all grown up now. Can you still help somehow?
That's kind. That's kind of. That's
child,
not the reason I'm doing that, but that is kind.
Still can't dream. So here's my lifelong wish, my grown-up Christmas.
I think that's all we need to watch.
Enough for myself.
Okay, so that works, which is awesome. I'm pleased. So that would suggest that we could do that as a thing. And Linda's saying she could cry. Linda, don't cry. I know you've had a rough week, but stay with me. That's great. I'm glad that could work. Let me bring. I've just got to fix something here to get back to where we need to be now. I'm pleased. Audio and video worked great. Okay. And thank you everyone for your kind words. For those of you who haven't heard me actually sing before, you can get to that via the channel. It's a little bit further down, but you can go and check that video out in full if that's what you wish to do. Let's finish off, and we will finish off today with I'll end. You've got a brief moment to complete the poll if you haven't yet. But I'm going to end the poll in a second after I answer Christine's question. I noticed that when I try to belt or hit a higher note, my voice just locks up. What exercises should I be doing? There's a range of things I think you'll find helpful, in particular breath management. And so your bodies more often than not want to drive the air the louder you get. And it's counterintuitive in good belt, but you actually have to learn to back that air pressure off. Interestingly, there is an increase in air pressure in belt as we get higher and get louder. That is actually what's happening. What tends to happen, though, is we, the singer, tend to become overt in that increase. We tend to overdrive. And so I find it helpful with my students to actually learn mentally we approach it like we're actually backing off. We're keeping that pressure in check by counterintuitively feeling like we're doing less. It is more twang, so it's a highly energized, focused sound. But it's just something that you need to be mindful of in your in the way you approach it. So it's all about balance, and good balance comes from good body alignment, good tension management, born of good breath management, and these are the things that we start off with, and then we develop our ability to improve belt. The way to get there is not purely through singing more belt songs. You've got to develop your technique to get that right outcome. And so you might like to give that some thought, Christine. I hope that's helpful. It's a brief explanation, but I hope that helps nonetheless. Well, there you go. Let's end the poll. Let's show you what the results of this poll were. Now, what did we have? We had, oh, here we go. We had 17 votes, and basically 2/3 of you said yes, you'd be happy to have it done, and a third said no, and that's pretty much what I'd expect. That's okay. And again, we would not be, if we decide to do it, and I think we just proved that technically it can work. If we think to do it in the new term, and let me know. I'll quickly, let's do one more because we've got time. Let me do one more. How will I question this? How should I ask the question? Of adding Okay, so I've just added a new poll. Quickly, let's do this very quickly. Do you like the idea of adding voice reviews to the live show? Go for it. Hit it. You've got to get in there and tell me. We had 7, we've had 6, 7. The rest of you. we've had 7 votes so far. 8. No. There was, what happened there? Deary me. 10 votes. 10 votes. Come on, I think we've got a few more votes. 11 votes. Jump in. There's no it doesn't cost you anything to vote. I'm watching this vote live. 11 votes. I'm going to count down from 10. You ready? And then I'm going to close the thing and tell you what the result is. 12. So here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ending poll. And believe it or not, we had a 100%, 13 votes. 100% of you think it's a good idea. I'm glad you think it's a good idea. Where I'm leaning towards the idea of doing it. I'll discuss it a bit with Linda and see if we can come up with, sometimes it's very, in the moment of a new idea, it's very hard to think of the reasons why one shouldn't do something, and I'm going to sit on it for the next couple of weeks while I go on holidays and chew on it and see if anything comes up. Linda, you can let me know if you think of anything too. We're going to call it a day. I hope it was a bit of a different show today, wasn't it? Testing stuff, and we very rarely we do this sort of very live, live community process, but I hope you found it a little bit fun for our last show of the first half of the year. I've got basically 3.5. I've got 2 students this afternoon, then I've got 3 days of teaching, and then I'm going on 2 weeks annual. Well, it's actually basically 1 week of annual leave while I'll be skiing, and then I'll come back and shoot some new videos and, get myself geared up for the second half of the year. I hope you finish up having a nice Father's Day for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere. And I very much hope you're all safe and sound over the next few weeks. We'll see you in 3 weeks for our next live hangout. But until I see you next time, I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.